Good morning. And I'll say I have a bit of a head cold, but I've been tested and I don't have COVID. So that's the reassurance of 2021. Good morning and welcome to our worship service at First Unitarian Society of Ithaca. My name is Magdalene Lindeberg and I'm your celebration associate today. Thank you so much for joining us, both you who are here in person and those of you who are watching online. It is so wonderful to be together. Our service this morning is being live streamed from our sanctuary in downtown Ithaca and will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. I'd like to make one brief announcement, that is that we are excited to be offering 2 holiday services this year. On Christmas Eve, a family-friendly pageant at 4 p.m., and a candlelit traditional service at 9 p.m. Both of these will be held here in the sanctuary. You can see our church website for information on signing up to attend. Both services will also be live streamed, and I encourage you to mention this to people in the community who might be seeking a holiday observance to attend. Please check our website for more information on how to create connections. If you'd like to receive updates describing opportunities for engagement, please email a request to office@uuithaca.org. Newcomers are specially invited to visit our website and complete a newcomer form so we can get to know you better. And one last little announcement is to encourage you to turn off your cell phones. Our chalice this morning will be lit by Sue Ronke. Please join me in saying the chalice lighting words that are in the order of service. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action. Our opening words today are by Melanie Davis. If ever there were time for a candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Please join me in singing hymn number 295, Sing Out Praises for the Journey, and we ask that you sing piano or mezzo piano to maintain the effectiveness of your mask.
Good morning. Some of you can appreciate taking these masks off when you have glasses and hearing aids on. My name is Dick Kurtz. I want to speak to you this morning a few minutes about the Pledge to End Racism workshops. I took the workshop recently, and I'm speaking specifically to those of you that haven't decided to take the workshop or perhaps decided not to take the workshop. When I decided to, I was ambivalent. I said to myself, you're not a racist, you don't need to do these things. And I finally said, well, maybe you'll learn something, certainly you'll learn something. So I decided to do it. And then the other reason was, in COVID, like all of you, I was by myself. I said, this is a way to connect, reconnect with some of the FUSIT members. I'm relatively new here. I was here about 2 years before COVID hit, so a lot of people I don't know, and a lot of faces I knew, but I hadn't the names yet. So that was my reason for taking it. What it is, it's a program that's developed by another group of people that we have, but it's facilitated by our own FUSIT people, and some very good facilitators, I will say. Six sections on it. There's a little outside reading. There's the discussion. Of course, it's a Zoom program, and a program in which we would break into some small groups. So from my point of view of connecting and reconnecting, it worked quite well for me. So what did I learn? Well, my background is such, I grew up in a small farm in upstate New York here, in fact, in an area where we and all the neighboring farmers grew potatoes, we grew sweet corn, and we grew green beans for processing, and that was before the machines. So I grew up surrounded by migrant laborers in the season. And also some of those migrant laborers were hired by the farmers full-time, so I went to school with them. I was sitting next to them in the aisle. I understood what black people were about. They were okay. They were the same as us. But I learned some other things when I took this. It was an experience for me. I explored that growing up situation that I was in and what my feelings were. I explored my beliefs following that of racism, of black people, of other peoples. I explored what racism in society is today, the structural racism we all talk about. The program was so good in developing those things, in developing a better understanding of my own beliefs, of listening to the others that were with me, their beliefs, their understandings. I'm so glad that I took it. Then, in addition, of course, what are we going to do about it? What will we do? What would I do in my life? I'm like so many of us. My life is a very white life. I don't have opportunities to deal with people who are not like me. So what can I do? And it showed me what I can do. It showed me what I can do in my personal life. It showed me what I can do if I want to be involved with groups that are actively pursuing making less racism in this world we live in today. So for me, my reasons for getting in and what I experienced, I'm so glad that I did it. So, back to those of you that haven't done it. If you're saying, I don't know if I want to do it because I don't need to, I suggest you should try it. You will learn things, as I did, I believe, that are beyond what your own beliefs are. Hang on a minute. There's a point okay. But this is my point. What you can do, in my case, what I will do in the future, things I didn't realize I could do. So, also, if you're undecided and you're saying to myself, well, I'm a private person, I don't want to be there where I'm told I have to speak my mind, trust me, you don't have to. You can be quiet, you'll be encouraged to talk, but if it's your position that you want to keep things to yourself, nobody's going to say anything. And you'll come out of it I believe, a better person. So, thank you.
Good morning, friends. This week and next week, I have my small dated envelopes here for anyone who would like to open them with me. Again, there is a little bunch of them in that basket up front, so please don't be shy. There's probably again about 10 to 12 of them. Come on up and grab a little packet if you would like to. Looks like Stephanie's going to help again. Thank you, Stephanie. Everyone's like, where do we go? All right. I'm going to open mine as she passes those out, and let's see what's inside. Oh, I think I may have closed this too firmly this week. Oh, there it is. I got a penny. What everyone else get out there? Oh, I see some silver coins out there, more than me. All right, well, I just got a penny. A Unitarian Universalist woman named Malvina Reynolds wrote a song called The Magic Penny, and it goes like this. Love is something when you give it away, give it away, give it away. Love is something when you give it away, you end up getting more. Love is something. If you give it away, you end up having more. This month, we can also say that joy is something. If we give it away, you end up having more. Our theme this month is opening to joy, and today we're talking about sharing joy and the work of generosity. Just like the song says, when we give something away, we end up having more. Generosity gives us the gift of a warm heart and a sense of wholeness. In fact, we can never really be joyful and happy unless we are being generous. And on top of that, when we are generous, we don't just end up giving others more stuff, we end up giving them more joy. Just think about how you feel when a friend shares their bike with you, a toy with you, or even treats you to an ice cream cone. You feel good, not just because you have something you didn't have before, but it also makes you feel connected to your friends, and that is such a joy. So today we're going to read a story called The Word Collector by Peter H. Reynolds, where we explore how sharing and being generous creates more joy in the world and for ourselves. Collectors collect things. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect coins. Others collect rocks. Some collect art. Some collect bugs. Others collect baseball cards. Some people collect comic books. And Jerome, what did he collect? Jerome collected words, like wonder. He collected words he heard. My trip to Peru was perfectly pleasant. Certain words caught his attention. He collected words that he saw, like willow. Certain words jumped out at him. He collected words that he read, like emerald. Certain words popped off of the page. Short and sweet words, like spark, bloom, drift, and dream. Two-syllable treats, like treasure, motif, whisper, candid, hover, and glimmer. And multi-syllable words that sounded like little songs, kaleidoscope, guacamole, wonderful, geometry, symphony. There were words he did not know the meaning of at first, but they were marvelous to say, like aromatic, vociferous, effervescent. There were words whose sounds were perfectly suited to their meanings, like Tyrannosaurus rex, molasses, torrential, smudge, and bellow. Jerome filled his scrapbooks with more and more of his favorite words. Jerome's collections grew. He began organizing them. Dreamy, science, sad, action, poetic. One day, while transporting them, Jerome slipped, and his words went flying. As he began to pick them up, he noticed his collections had become jumbled. Big words next to little words, sad words next to dreamy words. Jerome began stringing words together, words he had not imagined being side by side. Whisper symphony, electric peace. Savor dreams, cascading stars. He used his words to write poems. He used his poems to make songs. They moved, they delighted. Some of his simplest words were his most powerful. I understand. I'm sorry. Thank you. You matter. Jerome eagerly collected more and more of his favorite words. The more words he knew, the more clearly he could share with the world what he was thinking, feeling, and dreaming. One breezy afternoon, Jerome climbed the highest hill, pulling a wagon packed with his word collection. He smiled as he emptied his collection of words into the wind. He saw children in the valley below, scurrying about, collecting words from the breeze. Jerome had no words to describe how happy that made him. In our story, we met Jerome. We saw that he loves collecting all kinds of words. It makes him happy. But we also learned that what makes him even happier is taking the words he collects and sharing them with others. I hope that you get to experience the joys of generosity by sharing what you love, whether that is giving money to those in need, sharing a beloved toy, a favorite book or song, a skill or talent, a warm plate of cookies, hugs, and snuggles, or simply your love and appreciation for those around you. Because the more you give, the more you receive in return.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Emily. In a spirit of reverence, love, and care, we take time now to bear witness to some of the joys and sorrows of our community. We have to share those events that call for our prayers and support, our praise and celebration. From Michelle Hochstetter. Keep Mariah and Josh Prentice and Michelle Hochstetter in your thoughts after losing both of Mariah's parents. Bard and Gina Prentice within 3 weeks of each other. Our hearts go out to you. For those we are holding in our thoughts, in our hearts, and perhaps in our prayers, let us call these names out loud into this community, into this space of healing and hope right now. We extend loving kindness to all in our world. And let us not forget to extend loving kindness to ourselves. Today, tomorrow, and beyond, let our hands be outstretched in kindness, and let us keep showing up to our lives and to each other with an open heart, no matter what. Love and courage to us all. Amen.
Our meditation words are Kindness by Naomi Shihab Nye. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop, the passengers eating maize and chicken staring out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with your sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes, that sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is you I have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend.
I breathe out, I'll breathe out loved. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Each week, we take an offering to sustain the important ministries and programs of this congregation and its presence in Ithaca. The giving information is shown in the order of service. For those watching online, the text number and website will appear on your screen during the music and in the information below the live stream image on YouTube. Giving to the plate is important. It's a symbol of our gratitude for this service and our ongoing commitment to sustain the work of the church. So please take a moment and give through either the text option or the giving button on the church website. If you're attending in person and would prefer to write a check, you can place your offering in the box by the door after the service. Please join me in saying the offertory words that are printed in your order of service. May these gifts bring about connection, inspiration, and engagement within these walls and beyond. Our speaker today is Mike Mann. Mike moved to Ithaca 2.5 years ago and has been an active member of FUSIT since then. He has been a Unitarian Universalist since college. Now retired, his last job was running an AmeriCorps program in the Finger Lakes. Mike is an avid hiker, father to 2 adult children, and grateful to be part of the FUSIT community. Mike.
Oh, that feels good. Good morning. The first reading is from the book Homeless to Harvard, the Liz Murray story. The world moves. You're just a speck. it could all happen without you. Situations are not always conducive to what you want for yourself. I think people just get frustrated, so they spend their time dwelling on the frustration and calling it anger, keeping their eyes shut to the wholeness of the situation. Keeping their eyes shut to the wholeness of the situation, to all the little tiny things that have come together to make it what it is. Just a second. The address this morning is based on a commencement address that the author David Foster Wallace gave, actually at my college about 15 years ago. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a while, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" If you're worried that I plan to present myself here as a wise old fish explaining what water metaphorically is, please don't be. I am not the wise old fish. The immediate point of the fish story is that the most obvious, ubiquitous, important realities are often the ones that are the hardest to see and talk about. Stated as an English sentence, of course, this is just a banal platitude. But the fact is that in the day-to-day trenches of adult existence, banal platitudes can have life or death importance. My point is that I also need to have just a little more critical awareness about myself and my certainties. I need to be aware of my ways of constructing meaning from experience, which are a matter of personal, intentional choice. And to be just a little less arrogant, because a huge percentage of the stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of, it turns out, is totally wrong and diluted. Here's one example of the utter wrongness of something I tend to be automatically sure of. Everything in my own immediate experience supports my deep belief that I am the absolute center of the universe, the realest, most vivid, and important person in existence. We rarely talk about this sort of natural, basic self-centeredness because it's so socially repulsive, but it's pretty much the same for all of us deep down. It is our default setting, hardwired into our boards at birth. Think about it. There's no experience you've had that you are not at the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is right there, in front of you, behind you, to the left, to the right, on your TV or your monitor or whatever. Other people's thoughts and feelings have to be communicated to you somehow, but your own are so immediate, urgent, real. You get the idea. Another question you could ask is how much of this work of adjusting our default settings involves actual knowledge or intellect? This question gets very tricky. Probably the most dangerous thing about an academic education, at least in my case, is it enables my tendency to over-intellectualize stuff, to get lost in abstract argument inside my head instead of simply paying attention to what is going on right in front of me, paying attention to what is going on inside of me. And as I'm sure you know by now, it's extremely difficult to stay alert and attentive instead of getting hypnotized by the constant monologue inside your own head. It may be happening right now. But please don't worry that I'm getting ready to preach to you about compassion or other directedness or so-called virtues. This is not a matter of virtue. It's a matter of choosing to do the work of somehow altering or getting free of my natural, hardwired default settings, which is to be deeply and literally self-centered and to arrogantly see and interpret everything through this lens of self. It means being conscious enough and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience. Because if you cannot exercise this kind of choice in adult life, you will be totally hosed. Think of the old cliche about the mind being an excellent servant, but a terrible master. This, like many cliches, so lame and unexciting on the surface, actually expresses a great and terrible truth. How to keep going through our comfortable, prosperous, respectable adult life dead, unconscious, a slave to our head and to our natural default settings of being uniquely, completely, imperially alone day in and day out. This may sound like hyperbole or abstract nonsense, so let's get more concrete. One aspect of this involves boredom, routine, and petty frustration. By way of example, let's say it's an average day, and you get up in the morning, go to your challenging job, and you work hard for 9 or 10 hours, and at the end of the day, you are tired, you're stressed out, and all you want to do is go home and have a good supper, and maybe unwind for a couple of hours, and then go to bed early because you have to get up the next day and do it all again. But then you remember there's no food at home. You haven't had time to shop this week because of your challenging job. And so now, after work, you have to get in your car, drive to the supermarket. It's the end of the workday and the traffic's very bad, so getting to the store takes you way longer than it should. And when you finally get there, the supermarket is very crowded because, of course, it's that time of day when all the other people with jobs also try to squeeze in some grocery shopping. And the store is hideously, fluorescently lit and infused with soul-killing music. And it's very much the last place you want to be. But you can't get just quickly in and out. You have to wander all over the huge, overlit stores, crowded aisles, to find the stuff you want, and you have to maneuver your junky cart through all those other tired, hurried people with carts. And of course, there are the glacially slow people and the spacey people and kids who all block your aisle. And you have to grit your teeth and try to be polite as you ask them to let you by. And eventually, finally, you get all your supper supplies, except now it turns out there aren't enough checkout lanes open, even though it's the end of the day rush, so the checkout line is incredibly long, which is stupid and infuriating. But you can't take your fury out on the frantic lady working the register. I think you get the idea. Anyway, you finally get to the checkout line's front, and you pay for your food, and wait to get your credit card authenticated by the machine, and then get told to have a nice day in a voice that is the absolute voice of death. And then you have to take your bag of groceries into your cart with that one crazy wheel that keeps going maddeningly to the left through the crowded parking lot and try to load the bags in your car in such a way that everything doesn't fall out of the bags and roll around in the trunk on the way home. And then you have to drive all the way home through the slow, heavy, SUV-intensive rush hour traffic, etc., etc. Whew. But the point is that petty, frustrating crap like this is exactly where the choice of choosing comes in. Because the traffic jams and crowded aisles and long checkout lines give me time to think. And if I don't make a conscious effort, conscious decision about how to think and what to pay attention to, I'm going to be pissed and miserable every time I have to food shop, because my natural default setting is the certainty that situations like this are really all about me, about my hungriness and my fatigue and my desire to just get home. And it's going to seem for all the world like everybody else is just in the way. And who are all these people in my way? And look at how bored most of them are and how dead-eyed they seem here in the checkout line, or how annoying and rude it is that people are talking loudly on their cell phones in the middle of the line. And look at how deeply unfair this is. I've worked really hard all day, and I'm starved and tired, and I can't even get home to eat and unwind because of all these stupid people. Or, if I'm in a more socially conscious form of my default setting, I can spend time in the end of the day traffic being angry and disgusted at all the huge lane blocking SUVs and Hummers and V12 pickup trucks burning their wasteful, selfish 40-gallon tanks of gas. And I can dwell on the fact that the patriotic or religious bumper stickers always seem to be on the biggest, most disgustingly selfish vehicles, driven by the most inconsiderate and aggressive drivers who are usually talking on cell phones as they cut people off in order to get just 20 feet ahead in a traffic jam. And I can think about how our children's will despise us for wasting all the future's fuel and screwing up the climate, and how spoiled and disgusting we all are, and how it just sucks, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea? If I choose to think this way, fine. Lots of us do, except that thinking this way tends to be so easy and automatically, it doesn't have to be a choice. Thinking this way is my natural default setting. It's the automatic, unconscious way that I experience the boring, frustrating, crowded parts of adult life when I'm operating on the automatic, unconscious belief that I am the center of the universe and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. The thing is that there are obviously different ways to think about these kinds of situations. In this traffic, all these vehicles stuck and idling in my way, it's not impossible that the Hummer that just cut me off is maybe being driven by a father whose little child is sick or hurt in the seat next to him, and he's trying to rush to the hospital, and he's in a much bigger, more legitimate hurry than I am. It is actually I who am in his way. Or I can choose to force myself to consider the likelihood that everyone else in the supermarket's checkout line is just as bored and frustrated as I am, and that some of these people probably have harder, more tedious and painful lives than I do. Again, please don't think I'm trying to give you moral advice or that I'm saying you're supposed to think this way, or that anyone expects you to just automatically do it, because it's hard. It takes will and mental effort. And if you're like me, some days you won't be able to do it, or you just flat out don't want to. But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a choice, you can choose to look differently at this dead-eyed, over-made-up lady who just screamed at her little child in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of her husband who's dying of cancer. Or maybe this very lady is a low-wage clerk at the motor vehicles department who just yesterday helped her spouse resolve a nightmarish red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. Of course, none of this is likely, but it's also not impossible. It just depends on what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is and who and what is really important, if you want to operate on your default setting, then you, like me, will not consider possibilities that aren't pointless and annoying. But if you've really learned how to think, how to pay attention, then you will know you have other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell type situations as not only meaningful but sacred, on fire with the same force that made the stars, love, fellowship, the mystical oneness of all things deep down. Not that the mystical stuff necessarily is true. The only thing that's capital T true is you get to decide how you're going to see it. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. You get to decide what to worship. Because here's something else that's true. In the day-to-day stretches of adult life, there's no such thing as atheism. I would posit that there is no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And an outstanding reason for choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it JC or Allah or the Four Noble Truths or the UU7 principles or some inviolable set of ethical principles, is it pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. If you worship money and things, if those are where you tap real meaning in life, then you will never have enough. Never feel you have enough. It's the truth. Worship your body and beauty and sexual allure, and you will eventually feel ugly, and when time and age start showing, you will die a million deaths before dying. On one level, we all know this stuff already. It's been codified as myths, proverbs, cliches, parables, the skeleton of every great story. The truth is keeping the truth up front in daily consciousness. Worship power, you will feel weak and afraid, and you'll need ever more power over others to keep the fear at bay. Worship your intellect, being seen as smart, you will end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. The insidious thing about these forms of worship is not that they're evil or sinful. They're default settings. It's their unconscious. They're the kind of worship you just gradually slip into day after day, getting more and more selective about what you see and how you measure value without being fully aware about what you're doing. And the so-called real world will not discourage you from operating on your default settings, because the world of prestige and money and power hums along quite nicely on the fuel of fear and frustration and craving and the worship of self. Our own present culture has harnessed these forces in ways that have yielded extraordinary wealth and comfort and personal freedom. The freedom to be lords of our own tiny, skull-sized kingdoms, alone at the center of all creation. This kind of freedom has much to recommend it. But there are all different kinds of freedom. And the kind that is most precious, you will not hear much talked about in the great outside world of winning and achieving and displaying. The really important kind of freedom involves attention and awareness and discipline and effort, and being able to truly care about other people and to sacrifice for them over and over in the myriad petty little unsexy ways every day. That is real freedom. The alternative is unconsciousness, the default setting, the rat race, the constant gnawing sense of having had and lost some infinite thing. I know that this stuff probably doesn't sound fun and breezy or grandly inspirational. What it is, so far as I can see, is the truth and a whole lot of rhetorical BS pared away. Obviously, you can think of whatever you wish, but please don't dismiss this as some finger-wagging diatribe or haranguing. None of this is about morality or religion or dogma or big fancy questions about life after death. The capital T truth is about life before death. It is about making it through life with some joy. It is about simple awareness of what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight around us that we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over. This is water. This is water. Thank you.
Getting to lift my voice in song with each of you every week is one of my great joys. So in deep gratitude, I would ask you to rise in body or spirit and join us in our closing hymn, number 16, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple." 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be a delight, and by turning, turning, we come round right.
Closing words are by Spencer Syme. As the world fights to figure everything out, I'll be holding doors for strangers, letting people cut in front of me in traffic, saying good morning, keeping babies entertained in grocery lines, stopping to talk to someone who is lonely, tipping generously, sharing food, being patient with sales clerks, smiling at passers-by, and buying a stranger a cup of coffee. Join me in showing kindness. Be kind to a stranger. Give grace to friends. Be forgiving with yourself. If you can't find kindness, be kindness. As we extinguish the chalice, we gather the warmth of love, the light of truth, and the energy of action into our hearts and carry it forward into our world.